The Quantum Propulsion Institute's primary research complex looked more like a fortress than a scientific facility. Nestled deep within the Atacama Desert, its mirrored exterior reflected nothing of the chaos brewing inside its reinforced walls. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood perfectly still, her dark eyes locked on the holographic display that showed the quantum drive's internal architecture. A labyrinthine network of superconducting coils and exotic matter conduits that defied conventional engineering. Thermal stability at 98.6%, mumbled Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, his fingers dancing across a haptic interface. Unlike Elena, Hiroshi carried the weight of generations of failed attempts. His grandfather had dedicated his entire career to faster-than-light research, dying with nothing but rejected grant proposals and broken dreams. Now, 3 generations later, Hiroshi was about to prove that obsession could indeed bear fruit. The quantum drive itself was a masterpiece of human desperation and ingenuity, constructed from materials that didn't exist a decade ago. Programmable metamaterials that could reshape their molecular structure in microseconds. It represented humanity's last-ditch effort to break free from the solar system's confines. Earth had become a pressure cooker of overpopulation, resource depletion, and geopolitical tensions. Space wasn't just a scientific frontier, it was humanity's escape hatch. Elena's comm band chirped. It was Marcus Chen from the United Earth Council, his holographic projection flickering with intentional military precision. Final authorization sequence initiated. You have a 7-minute window. Anything beyond that, and the plug gets pulled, politically and literally. She knew what was at stake. The previous 18 test attempts had ended in spectacular failures, molecular disintegration, localized time distortions, and, in one horrifying instance, a test chamber that had seemingly folded in on itself, leaving behind nothing but a perfect geometric void. Initiating quantum resonance cascade, Hiroshi announced, his voice betraying a mix of terror and exhilaration. The room's ambient temperature dropped 10 degrees. Quantum stabilizers hummed with an almost sentient intensity. The drive, a spherical construct of impossible geometries, began to pulse with a light that wasn't quite light. It was something more fundamental, a visual representation of reality itself being stretched and prodded. Dr. Imani Okeke, the team's quantum physicist, watched the spectral analysis with growing excitement. Quantum entanglement is holding. Dimensional stress within acceptable parameters. Her fingers traced complex patterns on her tablet, each movement calibrating dozens of safety protocols. Then it happened. The quantum drive didn't just activate, it erupted, not with fire or explosion, but with a silent implosion of reality. The laboratory's physical space began to shift. Walls seemed to breathe, architectural lines became suggestions rather than absolutes. A coffee mug on a nearby console slowly melted upward, defying gravity, its ceramic body transforming into a crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Hiroshi's monitoring equipment went haywire. Holographic displays fragmented, showing impossible geometries and data streams that seemed to read backwards and forwards in time. "We're getting quantum bleed-through," he shouted, his professional calm fracturing. "The drive is creating localized reality breaches." Elena watched in a state of horrified fascination as her research assistant, Carlos Reyes, walked through a section of wall that had become temporarily transparent. He didn't seem to notice anything unusual, continuing to tap on a tablet as if nothing was wrong. Dimensional stability at 62% and falling, Imani called out, her voice a mix of scientific wonder and genuine fear. The quantum drive continued its impossible performance. Equipment began to merge, a computer server slowly interpenetrating a titanium support column, creating a hybrid structure that violated every known law of physics. 2 separate workstations folded into each other, their electronic systems cross-communicating in a language that was part binary, part something entirely new. Marcus Chen's hologram flickered violently. "Rodriguez, what the hell is happening?" But Elena couldn't respond. She was transfixed by a phenomenon occurring in the chamber's far corner. 3 separate pieces of equipment, a spectral analyzer, a quantum stabilization unit, and an experimental matter printer, had begun to merge into a single, impossibly complex machine. Its form suggested functionality, but of a type no human mind could comprehend. The quantum drive had done more than activate. It had started a conversation with reality itself, and humanity was about to listen. The United Nations Diplomacy Complex stood as a testament to humanity's most ambitious architectural achievement, a building designed to host beings from across the galaxy. Its adaptive architecture could reconfigure molecular structures to accommodate visitors from worlds with gravity ranges, atmospheric compositions, and physiological requirements that would crush or suffocate any Earth-evolved life form. Marcus Chen arrived early, his military-issued quantum adaptive suit rippling with microscopic calibration systems. He wasn't a diplomat by training. He was a problem solver. 15 years of special operations had taught him that every conversation was a battlefield, every negotiation a potential war. Zarvex entered preceded by a quantum-dampening field that seemed to dim the very light around it. The Zylexian representative was a nightmare of crystalline biology, a being that existed somewhere between organic life and living mathematics. Its body shifted and recalibrated with each movement, faceted surfaces catching and refracting light in impossible geometric patterns. Humanity has breached the Galactic Concordance quantum stability protocols. Zarvex's translation matrix produced a voice that sounded like multiple conversations happening simultaneously. Your recent quantum drive test has created subspace disruptions detected across 17 star systems. Marcus didn't flinch. He activated a holographic display that showed the quantum drive's test results, not as dry scientific data, but as a living, breathing visualization of the event. Quantum filaments danced, showing how the drive had momentarily folded spacetime into configurations that defied conventional understanding. "What you see is a violation," Marcus responded. "We see as our first step into a broader understanding of universal mechanics." Behind Zarvex, 2 additional alien representatives observed. A Silicon collective envoy, a being of pure computational energy contained within a translucent crystalline matrix, and a representative from the neural confluence, a species that communicated through complex quantum entanglement. The Silicon Collective's representative, designated X742, spoke first. Its voice was a precise digital modulation. "Your technology creates quantum instabilities that could potentially unravel established subspace communication networks. This is not a minor transgression. It is an existential threat." Marcus had prepared for this. He knew the aliens viewed technological innovation through a lens of strict control and measured progress. Humanity was different, chaotic, unpredictable, driven by an almost reckless curiosity. "We're not asking for permission," Marcus said, his tone cold and deliberate. "We're informing you of a new reality." A holographic reconstruction materialized, showing how the quantum drive had momentarily created quantum bridges between seemingly disconnected regions of space. What the aliens saw as a threat, humanity saw as a breakthrough. The drive didn't just move through space, it reimagined the very concept of spatial relationships. Zarvex's crystalline form began to pulse with an angry luminescence. The Galactic Concordance has protocols for emerging civilizations, technological discoveries that can destabilize existing quantum infrastructures are to be immediately quarantined and studied under controlled conditions. The neural confluence representative remained silent, its consciousness seemingly spread across multiple dimensional states. Unlike its more aggressive counterparts, it was processing the information through complex quantum computations that could take what humans would experience as years. Marcus activated a secondary display. Recordings from the quantum drive test showed moments of impossible beauty, space folding, reforming, creating bridges between regions that should have been light years apart. It wasn't just a technological demonstration. It was a work of art that redefined the universe's potential. Your protocols are based on preventing potential threats, Marcus said. Ours are about exploring potential. He paused, letting the weight of the statement sink in. We're not asking to join your concordance. We're telling you that the concordance will need to adapt to us. The room fell into a quantum-charged silence. The alien representatives processed this statement through their respective computational and biological systems. What humans saw as audacity, they recognized as something far more dangerous, genuine, uncontrolled potential. X-742 of the Silicon Collective was the first to respond. This is not a negotiation. This is a fundamental restructuring of galactic understanding. And in that moment, humanity's first true interstellar diplomatic encounter became something far more profound. The initial tremor of a civilization about to reshape the very concept of cosmic exploration. The classified research facility cut deep into the Canadian Shield, a fortress of granite and quantum dampening technology that made it invisible to any conventional or exotic scanning method. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic reconstruction of their latest experiment, her fingers tracing the impossible geometries of quantum weapon interactions. It's not about destruction, she explained to the gathered military and scientific team. It's about information warfare at a fundamental level. Dr. Imani Okik brought up a series of simulations. Each one showed a different potential interaction of the quantum drive with standard matter and energy. In one projection, an alien battleship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but fundamentally unmade. Its molecular structure didn't explode or disintegrate. It simply became a probability cloud. Its matter redistributed across multiple potential states of existence. Colonel Sarah Winters, head of the Quantum Warfare Division, leaned forward, her cybernetic eye, a remnant of the resource wars, zoomed and enhanced the holographic display. Explain that again. How is this different from a conventional weapon? Elena's smile was equal parts scientific excitement and something darker. A conventional weapon destroys through kinetic or energy transfer. Our quantum drive doesn't destroy. It negotiates with reality. The simulation showed a complex dance of quantum potential. Where a traditional weapon would create a blast radius, the quantum drive created what could only be described as a probability infection. Targeted systems would experience multiple simultaneous states of existence. Communication networks would receive signals from moments that hadn't happened yet, or from alternate timelines that should have been impossible. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura pulled up additional data. Look at this quantum cascade effect. When the drive interacts with a complex system, like a spacecraft's computational matrix, it doesn't just disrupt. It rewrites the fundamental information structure. Another simulation showed an alien communication network. Instead of traditional electronic warfare that might jam or destroy signals, the quantum drive created a cascading effect where each transmitted signal existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. Messages would arrive before they were sent, or arrive in languages that hadn't been invented, or simply dissolve into pure mathematical potentiality. We've essentially created a weapon that fights at the level of information itself, Imani added, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and ethical concern. Colonel Winters was less philosophical. Can we weaponize this? The answer came from an unexpected source. A holographic projection materialized. Carlos Reyes, the research assistant who had walked through walls during the first quantum drive test. Since that moment, he had been different. His movements seemed to exist in multiple spaces simultaneously, and he seemed to perceive time in a way no other human could. Weaponization is the wrong concept, Carlos said, his voice carrying a strange harmonic quality. We're creating a method of communication with the universe itself. The weapon is just a side effect of understanding. The room fell silent. Carlos continued, his eyes seeing something beyond the physical space of the research facility. Each interaction is a negotiation. The quantum drive doesn't destroy, it reveals potential. Alien systems aren't being attacked. They're being asked to reconsider their own existence. Elena recognized something in Carlos that both excited and terrified her. The quantum drive was changing them, not just as a technological team, but as a species. Colonel Winters wasn't convinced. "I need practical applications. Can this disable an alien fleet?" A new simulation began. An alien battle group, its ships interconnected through sophisticated quantum communication networks, suddenly found itself in a nightmare of probability. Ships would momentarily phase out of existence, their crews experiencing multiple simultaneous realities. Communication became impossible as signals arrived in impossible configurations, messages from potential futures, echoes of alternate timelines, pure mathematical constructs that defied linear understanding. "Disable is too simple a word," Elena responded. "We're offering them a choice between one reality and infinite potential." The quantum weapon wasn't a tool of destruction. It was a key, a method of revealing the universe's underlying malleability, and humanity had just found the lock. Captain Aria Zhang stood on the bridge of the RSS Schrödinger, humanity's most advanced quantum adaptive scout vessel. Outside the ship's adaptive hull, the alien blockade formed a perfect geometric sphere. Thousands of ships from multiple galactic civilizations, each positioned with mathematical precision to contain Earth's potential expansion. What they didn't realize was that containment was the last thing on humanity's mind. Quantum signature stabilizing. Lieutenant Michael Okoye reported, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe and shift with each touch. Probability fields are holding at 97.3% coherence. The Schrödinger wasn't a traditional spacecraft. It was a quantum probability engine disguised as a ship, capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. Its hull incorporated metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves faster than light could travel, creating a vessel that was less a physical object and more a mathematical suggestion. "Initiate quantum drift," Aria commanded. The ship didn't move in any traditional sense. Instead, it began to exist in multiple potential locations at once. To the alien blockade sensors, the Schrödinger appeared to be everywhere and nowhere, a quantum ghost that defied conventional tracking methods. On the bridge of the Zalexian command vessel, navigator Krill X watched in mounting frustration. Their most advanced quantum tracking systems showed impossible data. One moment, the human vessel was detected near Jupiter's orbit. The next, it appeared to be simultaneously near the Kuiper belt and inside the alien blockade's perimeter. "It's not moving," Krell X muttered to the ship's computational matrix. "It's rewriting the very concept of movement." The first probe launched wasn't a weapon. It was a quantum information packet, a burst of pure mathematical potential that infected the alien communication networks. Wherever it touched, communication lines began to fracture. Messages arrived before they were sent. Translations became recursive loops of meaning, and data streams twisted into impossible geometries. Aboard the Silicon Collective's primary containment vessel, X-742 watched in growing alarm. The human incursion wasn't an attack. It was something far more dangerous, a fundamental challenge to the very concept of spatial and temporal constraints. "Quantum drift is stabilizing," Okoye reported. "We're creating nested probability fields that are consuming the blockade's tracking systems." Aria smiled. This wasn't about breaking through the blockade. It was about demonstrating that the blockade was nothing more than a collective illusion, a mathematical construct that humanity could now negotiate with. The next phase began almost imperceptibly. Quantum entanglement probes, tiny devices no larger than a human fingernail, began to seed the blockade's computational networks. They didn't attack. They integrated. Each probe became a node of potential, creating cascading information networks that existed in multiple states simultaneously. On the neural confluence vessel, the living computational matrix began to experience something closest to confusion. The human probes weren't just transmitting information. They were asking questions, complex, recursive queries that challenged the very foundations of the blockade's organizational structure. "Probability manipulation is increasing," Michael reported. We're creating quantum tunnels between blockade vessels. What happened next defied conventional understanding. Ships in the blockade began to experience quantum bleed-through. A Zylexian patrol vessel found its communication systems receiving transmissions from 3 different potential futures. A Silicon Collective support craft discovered its navigation systems calculating routes that didn't just predict movement. They created potential paths of existence. Arya watched the holographic display with a mix of scientific wonder and military precision. "We're not fighting," she murmured. "We're negotiating with reality itself." The blockade wasn't being broken. It was being reimagined. By the time the alien civilizations realized what was happening, the Schrödinger had already become something more than a ship. It was a quantum key, unlocking possibilities that the Galactic Concordance had spent millennia trying to contain. Humanity wasn't asking for permission to explore the universe. They were rewriting the very rules of exploration. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a wall of containment chambers, each housing a test subject transformed by prolonged quantum drive exposure. The medical wing of the Quantum Propulsion Institute had become something between a research facility and a place of miracles, or nightmares. Carlos Reyes was her first and most profound case study. Where once he had been a standard research assistant, he now existed in a state of quantum flux that defied medical understanding. His body wasn't just changing, it was constantly negotiating its own existence. Cellular restructuring continues. Elena dictated to the holographic medical log. Subject CR001 demonstrates increasing ability to perceive and partially interact with quantum superposition states. Carlos turned to look at her. But look wasn't the right word. His eyes were windows into multiple potential realities, shifting and recalibrating with each moment. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from multiple points in space-time simultaneously. "The boundaries are becoming softer," he said, his words rippling with strange mathematical undertones. "What you see as mutation, I experience as expansion." Dr. Imani Okik reviewed the latest genetic scans. The quantum drive's exposure had transformed human DNA into something that was part biological, part quantum information network. Chromosomes no longer followed linear patterns, but existed as probability clouds, capable of instantaneous reconfiguration. The military's initial test subjects told an even more radical story. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, had been part of the first extended quantum drive exposure experiment. Her neural pathways had developed quantum entanglement capabilities. She could communicate through pure information transfer, her brain functioning less like an organic computer and more like a living quantum communication node. "We're not just changing," Maya explained during one of her assessment interviews. "We're learning to speak the universe's native language." In another containment chamber, a group of quantum-exposed astronauts demonstrated abilities that bordered on the supernatural. One could momentarily phase through solid matter. Another experienced time as a malleable construct, walking backwards through moments, experiencing past and potential future events as easily as breathing. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura's research revealed the deeper implications. The quantum drive wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was an evolutionary catalyst. Human biology was being rewritten at the most fundamental level, transforming the species from carbon-based life to something that existed between matter and pure information. "It's not genetic modification," Hiroshi explained to the United Earth Council's research committee. "It's genetic negotiation. Our DNA is learning to communicate with the fundamental fabric of reality." The most startling discoveries came from the children of quantum-exposed parents. Infants demonstrated abilities that defied conventional understanding. Some could perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. Others showed an intuitive understanding of complex mathematical concepts before they could speak. One particularly remarkable case involved twins born to a quantum drive engineer. They appeared to share a form of quantum consciousness, able to communicate through pure information transfer that bypassed traditional sensory inputs. Elena watched Carlos as he moved through the research facility. He didn't walk so much as he existed in multiple potential paths simultaneously. His body was a living demonstration of quantum mechanics, partly here, partly elsewhere, partly in potential states that hadn't yet resolved. "We're not becoming something new," Carlos said, turning to Elena with eyes that saw beyond immediate reality. "We're remembering something we've always been capable of." The quantum drive had become more than a technological breakthrough. It was a key to unlocking human potential, a method of revealing capabilities that had always existed but remained dormant. Military strategists saw weapons. Scientists saw a research opportunity. But what was truly emerging was something far more profound. A species learning to negotiate its own existence, to understand reality not as a fixed construct, but as a conversation. Humanity was no longer just observing the universe. They were learning to speak its language. The colony ship Horizon's Edge wasn't just a vessel. It was a living experiment in human potential, captained by Area Zhang, the same pilot who had first demonstrated the quantum drive's capabilities against the alien blockade. 6 months into their unauthorized expedition, the ship had become something that defied every known concept of space travel. Its hull was a living membrane of adaptive metamaterials, constantly negotiating its own existence with the surrounding quantum landscape. Traditional bulkheads and corridors had long since given way to spaces that existed in multiple potential configurations. Quantum stability at 89.7%, reported Lieutenant Michael Okoye, his neural interface pulsing with information streams that would have driven a conventional human mind to madness. "We're maintaining coherence across 17 potential dimensional states." The crew was no longer a traditional collection of humans. They were quantum pioneers, each transformed by prolonged exposure to the experimental drive. Some, like communications specialist Dr. Elena Reyes, could perceive communication channels that existed between the spaces of known reality. Others, like navigation officer Jack Joe, experienced time as a malleable construct, able to glimpse potential futures and past moments with equal clarity. Their mission was both simple and impossibly complex: to explore the boundaries of human potential by creating a mobile quantum research facility that could literally create its own reality. "Initiating dimensional fold," Area announced, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested multiple simultaneous states of communication. The Horizon's Edge didn't move in any traditional sense. Instead, it began to negotiate its own existence with the surrounding space-time continuum. Entire sections of the ship would momentarily phase out of conventional reality, only to re-emerge in configurations that challenged fundamental understanding of spatial relationships. During one such transition, the ship passed through what could only be described as a quantum intersection. For a brief moment, the crew experienced multiple potential versions of their journey simultaneously. Some saw themselves as traditional space explorers. Others glimpsed versions where they had become pure energy beings. A few caught fleeting impressions of realities where the quantum drive had transformed them into something beyond human comprehension. Dr. Elena Reyes documented the experience with a method of recording that was part scientific observation, part artistic expression. Her neural interface created living documentation, information that could be experienced rather than simply read. "We're not just exploring space," she transmitted to the research team back on Earth. "We're exploring the concept of exploration itself." The ship's most radical experiment came unexpectedly. During a routine quantum drift, they encountered what could only be described as a dimensional nexus, a point where multiple potential realities intersected. Most ships would have been destroyed. The Horizon's Edge began a complex quantum negotiation. Jack Ju watched multiple potential outcomes simultaneously. In one reality, the ship was torn apart. In another, it passed through unscathed. In a third, it became something entirely new, a living bridge between dimensional spaces. "Initiating Quantum Bridge Protocol," Area commanded. The ship didn't just pass through the nexus, it began to map it. Quantum probes extended from the hull, not as physical instruments, but as pure mathematical constructs that could explore potential realities simultaneously. Each probe was a living extension of the ship's collective consciousness, negotiating with the fundamental fabric of reality. For 3 standard Earth days, the horizon's edge existed in a state of quantum flux. Communication with Earth became impossible, or rather, communication existed in a state of potential, with messages arriving before they were sent, or existing in multiple simultaneous interpretations. When they finally stabilized, the ship had changed. Its hull now incorporated mathematical structures that suggested sentience. The crew had developed capabilities that blurred the line between biological entity and pure information construct. "We're not just exploring the universe," Area transmitted in a message that would take months to fully decode. "We're teaching the universe how to understand itself through human potential." The quantum rebellion was no longer about defiance. It was about expansion, a collective human journey into the very fabric of possibility itself. The battle wasn't happening in any single moment or location. It existed as a complex mathematical argument, a conversation conducted through the fundamental language of reality itself. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the quantum engagement platform, a command center that was part spacecraft, part living computational matrix. Around him, holographic displays showed realities that defied conventional understanding. Each projection was a window into multiple potential confrontations, simultaneously occurring and yet to occur. Quantum cascade initiating. Lieutenant Imani O'Keefe reported, her neural interface pulsing with information streams that would have driven a conventional mind to immediate collapse. The alien blockade fleet didn't realize they were already defeated. Their most sophisticated tracking systems, their intricate defensive networks, their quantum communication infrastructures, all were about to become participants in a demonstration of human potential. The first wave wasn't an attack. It was an invitation. Quantum probes emerged from the human fleet, not as weapons, but as pure information constructs. Each probe was a living mathematical argument, capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. They didn't target ship systems, they targeted the very concept of those systems. On the Zylexian command vessel, Navigator Krill X watched in mounting horror as their most advanced quantum tracking systems began to unravel. Information streams twisted, communication channels folded in on themselves. It wasn't that the systems were being destroyed, they were being asked to reconsider their own existence. A Silicon Collective battleship found its computational matrix experiencing multiple simultaneous operational states. In one moment, it was preparing defensive maneuvers. In the next, it was reliving its entire operational history. Simultaneously, it was also calculating potential futures that had not yet occurred. Dimensional stress increasing, Marcus muttered, watching the complex mathematical dance unfold. The human fleet didn't move in any traditional sense. Instead, they existed as a complex quantum network, each ship a node of potential, capable of instantaneous reconfiguration. Where a conventional fleet would position ships in tactical formations, this human force created a living, breathing dimensional topology. Some alien vessels began to experience time non-linearly. A neural confluence cruiser found its entire operational timeline becoming fluid, moments of past maintenance overlapping with potential future engagements, all occurring simultaneously. Area John, commanding the horizon's edge, orchestrated the confrontation like a quantum symphony conductor. Her ship wasn't just participating in the battle, it was creating the very mathematical language of the conflict. Initiating dimensional cascade, she transmitted a message that existed before it was sent and after it was received. The most terrifying aspect wasn't the destruction. It was the possibility. Each human quantum probe created nested realities. Alien ships found themselves experiencing potential versions of the conflict. In one reality, they emerged victorious. In another, they were completely annihilated. In yet another, the concept of victory itself became meaningless. Marcus watched a Zylexian battlegroup experience 37 simultaneous potential outcomes. Some versions saw complete destruction. Others saw peaceful negotiation. Many existed in states that defied traditional understanding of conflict or resolution. "We're not fighting," Marcus transmitted to the alien fleet. "We're having a conversation about the nature of potential." The battle became a living mathematical proof. Humanity wasn't demonstrating military superiority. They were revealing a fundamental truth about the nature of reality itself, that conflict is just another form of communication, that boundaries are negotiable, that existence itself is a complex, multilayered conversation. As the confrontation reached its peak, the alien fleet found themselves not defeated, but fundamentally transformed. Their most sophisticated systems were being asked to expand their understanding of what was possible. Humanity had turned galactic warfare into a philosophical argument, and they were winning by rewriting the very rules of engagement. The Convergence Chamber stood as humanity's most ambitious project, a structure that was simultaneously a research facility, a diplomatic center, and a living testament to quantum potential. Its walls were not made of traditional materials, but of adaptive matter that could reshape itself based on computational needs, emotional states, and multidimensional requirements. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached the central quantum interface, her body now as much a mathematical construct as a biological entity. Years of quantum drive exposure had transformed her into something that existed between traditional human understanding and pure information potential. Representatives from the Galactic Concordance gathered, not in physical form, but as quantum projections that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. The Zylexian crystalline consciousness, the Silicon Collective's pure computational matrix, the Neural Confluence's living information network, all converged in a space that defied conventional understanding of location or presence. "Humanity has not conquered," Elena began, her communication transcending spoken language. "We have discovered a method of conversation with the universe itself." The quantum drive had become more than a technological breakthrough. It was a philosophical key, unlocking potential that had existed but remained dormant in both human consciousness and the fundamental fabric of reality. Carlos Reyes, now something far beyond his original human form, stood as a living demonstration of this transformation. His body shifted between states of matter and pure information, a bridge between biological life and quantum potential. When he spoke, his words were mathematical constructs that could be experienced rather than simply heard. "We are not an endpoint," Carlos transmitted. "We are a method of understanding." The Galactic Concordance had spent millennia maintaining a carefully controlled expansion of knowledge. Humanity had just demonstrated that knowledge was not something to be controlled, but a living, breathing entity to be engaged with. Arya Zhang, who had led the Quantum Rebellion, presented the ultimate revelation. The quantum drive was not just a method of travel or communication. It was a way of reimagining the very concept of existence. Holographic projections showed the journey of human exploration, where other civilizations had mapped stars and calculated precise trajectories. Humans had created living mathematical bridges between potential realities. Entire colony ships now existed as mobile research facilities, each vessel a complex negotiation with the fundamental nature of space and time. The most profound discoveries were not technological, but philosophical. Humanity had discovered that consciousness itself was a form of quantum potential, a method of engaging with reality that went beyond physical limitations. "We are offering a new method of exploration," Arya explained. Her form shifted, demonstrating the quantum adaptability that had become standard for human explorers, not just of space, but of potential itself. The alien representatives experienced multiple simultaneous responses. Some saw terror, others saw unprecedented opportunity. A few recognized a fundamental shift in cosmic understanding. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, now more quantum construct than traditional scientist, presented the final piece of the puzzle. The quantum drive was not just a human achievement. It was a universal communication method, a way of asking the universe about its own potential. "We are not conquerors," Hiroshi transmitted. "We are translators." Massive holographic displays showed the true extent of human exploration. Entire regions of space had been transformed into living research zones. Quantum colonies existed in states that defied traditional understanding. some simultaneously exploring multiple potential evolutionary paths, others creating living mathematical arguments about the nature of existence. The convergence chamber itself became a living demonstration. Its walls began to shift, showing potential futures, past moments, and simultaneously occurring realities. It was no longer a place of meeting, but a method of understanding. As the presentation concluded, the representatives of the Galactic Concordance found themselves fundamentally changed. Humanity had not just introduced a new technology. They had offered a new method of cosmic engagement, a way of understanding that went beyond physical exploration and into the realm of pure potential. "We are not finished," Elena transmitted as a final message. "We are just beginning to ask the right questions." The universe listened.